Hello everyone, welcome to the Prakashan Academy. Today we are studying clauses for standard 10. So first thing, what is clauses? A clause is a group of words containing a subject and a verb. Containing a subject and a verb. Now what is mean by subject is someone who is doing the action, and what is meant by verb, the action which has been performed. Clauses differ from phrases because they express a full idea. Now in phrases, why clauses differ from phrases? Because it express full idea. If independent or form a part of one, if dependent. So basically there are two types of clauses basically, which is independent and one is dependent. Now this is different from the phrases. Why? Because independent and dependent clause make it differ from the phrases. Now what is meant by independent clause is, now suppose any action is performed by someone but it is not dependent on the other, so it is known as independent clause. And if the action is dependent on the other action, so it is dependent clause. The next two main types of clauses. Okay, first is independent clause, so also called as main clause. Now independent clause is also called as a main clause. Now contains a subject and a verb. Contains a subject and a verb. Now forms a complete sentence on its own. Forms a complete sentence on its own. Means it is not dependent on any other sentences. Okay. For example, she sings. She sings. Now she sings is a independent clause. Why? Because this sentence is not dependent on any other sentences. So she sings is a independent clause. Independent clause. The next, that is dependent clause or subordinate clause. Now this clause is also known as subordinate clause. This clause is also known as subordinate clause. Contains subject verb but cannot stand alone. Means what? Now it is not independent. It needs another sentence. Okay. For example, I will call you. I will call you when I reach home. When I reach home. Now basically in this example there are two sentences. First is I will call you and second one is when I reach home. Okay. So I will call you when I will reach home. So this sentence is dependent on this sentence. So this is known as dependent clause or subordinate clause. Okay. Then next, now these are the types of dependent clause. Types of dependent clause. There are two main types of clause, which is independent and dependent. Now these are the types of dependent clause. Okay. So first one, that is noun clause. That is noun clause. Acts as a subject or object. Acts as a subject or object. Now what is meant by noun? Basically noun means any kind of name. Okay. Now its function is act as subject or object. Now it is introduced by these words, that is that, what, why, how, who, whether, if. Okay. And then here is an example. What you said made me cry. What you said made me cry. Now this is a dependent. This is a dependent clause. Now how will you identify? Now this clause is noun clause by these words. By this given words. Okay. That is that, what, why, how, who, whether. Now it is acting as like subject or object. Okay. So here what you said. What you said. So therefore it is a noun clause. Why? Because here the word that is what came, okay, what. The next, that is adjective or relative. Now this clause is also known as relative, okay, adjective or relative. So it describes a noun, it describes a noun, it describes a noun. Now these are some given words by which you can identify which type of dependent clause is this, like who, which, that, where, whose and whom, okay. The book that I read was good, the book that I read. Now here that, the word that came, so therefore it is a adjective or relative clause. The book that I read means what? The book that I read means they are relative, okay. The next, adverbial clause means modify verbs, adjective, time means what? Time, reason, place and condition. This modifies the condition, modifies the time, modifies the place. So it is known as adverbial clause, okay. Now when, because, if, although and since. Now these are some words by which you can identify which type of dependent clause the example is, okay. Now because she studied, she passed. Because the word because is form adverbial clause, okay. And then conditional clause means or condition, basically condition means it express conditions. Now if, unless or others, okay. Then if it rains, we will stay home. Now this is a condition. If it will rain, then we will stay home. But when we will stay home if it rain, otherwise no, okay. So it is known as conditional clause. The next, relative clause types. This is relative clause and the types of relative clause is given here, that is restrictive and non-restrictive. Now here who, which, that, these are some words, and commas for non-restrictive means how will you identify restrictive and non-restrictive? With the commas or without the commas. If the sentence contains commas, then it is non-restrictive, and when the sentence doesn't contain any comma, then it will be restrictive. Now these are some words by which you can identify the relative clause types. So here, the man who called is waiting. Now man who called, who is waiting. So like this, okay. And next, restrictive with no commas, essential to identify the noun. And then non-restrictive with commas means adds extra information to the sentences, okay. Then next, combining clauses. Combining clauses means two different sentences, if you combine them both, they become the combining clauses. Now here, compound sentences. Compound sentences. What is meant by compound words? That by two different words we form a new word. In the same way, two independent clauses joined by coordinating conjunction and, but and so. These are the coordinating conjunction, that is and, but and so. By this we can join two sentences together, okay. For example, I wanted ice cream, so I went to the shop. I wanted ice cream, so I went to the shop. If I don't want ice cream, then why should I went to the shop, right? Like this. I wanted ice cream, so I went to the shop. So this is your sentence 1 and this is your sentence 2. Now we combine this both sentences with the word so. With the word so, and, but, and so. So, here is so. Then complex sentences. Complex sentences means in this one independent and one more dependent clause is there. One independent and one more dependent clause is there. Now look at the example. He could not go. He could not go to the party unless he finishes homework. Unless he finishes homework. Now in this, he couldn't go to the party unless, this is one sentence. He finishes homework. This is another sentence. Now this sentence is dependent on this sentence. Okay. This sentence is dependent on this sentence. So one dependent and one independent sentences is there. So it is known as complex sentence. Then next, now this is a quick summary that what are the types, which types of clauses are there in the dependent clause. So what is meant by independent clause? That means stand alone as a sentence, means it doesn't need any other sentence to be dependent. Okay. What is meant by dependent clause? Needs an independent clause. Means what? Needs one more sentence. Okay. Then noun clause acts like a noun. Adjective or relative clause describes a noun. Then adverbial clause add when, why, where, how and etc. Then next conditional clause expresses a condition. Then understanding this will help you build simple, compound and complex sentence with clarity and precision. What practice questions or more example. Okay. Then next. So let's start with our MCQs on the clauses. Okay. So our first MCQ, that is, what is clause? What is clause? A group of words with missing subject or adverb. What is meant by missing? That means it doesn't contain the subject and verb. So a group of words containing a subject and a verb. A single word, noun or a conjunction. So which will be your correct option? That is a group of words containing a subject and a verbs. Okay. The next, which is an independent clause? Which is an independent clause? What is meant by independent? It does not depend on another sentence. Okay. If it rain, now if it is condition. Okay. Then because she was tired, because where is the table? Because is a adverbial clause. Because is a adverbial clause. Okay. So then she finished her homework. Now she finished her homework. This sentence is not dependent on any another sentence. So answer C will be your correct option. Answer C will be your correct option. Then next, when the bell ring. When the bell ring. Now here bell is like a subject and rang is a verb. Okay. But bell is a subject and rang is a verb. Now when we use when. So let's check when we use when. That is here. When. Okay, when. It is the adverbial clause. It is the adverbial clause. So when is the adverbial clause? Means what? It is dependent. It comes under the dependent. Now adverbial clause is a type of dependent clause, right? So it comes under the dependent clause. So your correct option will be option number C, that is dependent clause. Then next, identify the noun clause. Now what is meant by noun clause? That it acts as a noun. It acts as a noun. So what she said surprised me. Now what she said surprised me. They're talking about me. So it is acting like a noun, right? So option A will be your correct option. Okay. Then next, which is a relative or adjective clause? Relative or adjective clause. That is, who won the race? Who won the race? Then, that I bought yesterday. That I bought yesterday. Now this is I. I means it is describing a noun, that is I. That I bought yesterday. Okay. Then next, if you call me, if is a condition, and then before the game. Now before the game is like a dependent, but now here which is the relative adjective, that is I bought yesterday. That I bought yesterday. Okay. Means something sentence should be there in the front of this. Okay. That I bought yesterday. Like, those are the shoes that I bought yesterday. Like this. Okay. So option number B, that I bought yesterday, will be your correct option. Then next, select the adverbial clause. Select the adverbial clause. Okay. Now here, that you want when the show ends, which she owns, what he believes. Now what is meant by adverbial? It modifies time, place and conditions. Okay. So when the show ends, which she owns, what he believes, that you want. Now in this, if you see the B1, that is when the show ends. When the show ends. Now they are talking about the future. So it is modifying the time, right? It is modifying the time. So option number B will be your correct option. Then next, pick the interrogative clause. Pick the interrogative clause. Now here, I don't know why he left. I don't know why he left. He left before lunch. He is smart, and that he left. Now which is the interrogative clause here? That is, I don't know why he left. Like, it is like a question type. Okay, question type embedded with a question. So I don't know why he left will be your correct option. The next, which sentence is a complex? Which sentence is a complex? Now complex sentence, complex clause or complex sentence need one dependent and one independent clause. Okay. So here, it rained and we stayed home. It rained and we stayed home. Now, and then she sang beautifully. Now this is independent. Okay. Then next, since he was ill, she went to bed. Since she was ill, she went to bed. And then go inside. Now go inside is a command. Okay. And then it rained and we stayed home. It rained and we stayed home. Now these two sentences in this, it rained and we stayed home, these two are two sentences. Okay. But that dependent on each other. So both are dependent. Okay. So which will be your correct option? That is option number C. Since she was ill, she went to bed. She went to bed. Okay. If this sentence will be not there, this will be act as a independent. But this sentence is there. This is dependent sentence. Okay. So there are one independent and one dependent clause. So that's why answer C is your answer. Then next, all two, he studied. Although he studied, he failed. Although he studied, he failed. What type is although he studied? That is dependent clause. Dependent clause means what? He studied but still he failed, right? So, what type of although he studied? So, you just want this one. Now, this is dependent on which sentence? This sentence, okay? So, it is dependent. It is dependent clause, okay? So, next, identify the comparative clause. Identify the comparative clause. Now, comparative clause means what? What is mean by comparative? That comparing of two things. So, that I saw yesterday. Now, here there is no comparison. Than he could. Than is a word which is used to express the comparison. Okay. Then next, because it's late. Because it's late. Now, there is no comparison. Okay. It is a reason. Then who helped me? Now this is also not a comparison. So than he could. It is a type of comparison sentence. So option number B, than he could will be your correct option. Okay. Then next, what type of clause is to win the prize? To win the prize. Now it is like independent clause, infinitival clause, relative clause and phrase. So, which clause is this? That is, it is a non-finite infinitival clause. Non-finite infinitival clause. Okay. Then next. That is, which is a verbless clause. Which is a verbless clause means what? We don't want the action in it. Okay. So now, how odd that nobody noticed? How odd that nobody noticed? Now this is one sentence that someone is saying. Okay. But it doesn't contain any verb. Okay. Then next, before she slept. Now she slept is a verb. Okay. Then who came to see? Came is also verb. Then to eat. Eat is also verb. So which will be your correct option? That is option number A. How odd that nobody noticed. Then next, choose the correct clause classification. Choose the correct clause classification. He asked whether I was ready. Whether I was ready. Now they are asking about what? Which sentence? Whether I was ready. So it is noun clause. Why? Because I. Okay, it is acting as a subject, right? Subject of noun. That is whether I was ready. I was ready. So talking about I. So it is noun clause. The next, what type of clause is stop? Now stop is one command, right? So command comes under imperative independent clause. Okay. Then next, identify the clause in the sentences. Now we have to identify the clause in this sentence. Okay. Now this is the tree that I saw. This is the tree that I saw. Now it is dependent, it is independent or noun clause or phrase. Now here independent, what is mean the independent? That it doesn't depend on anyone, right? But this is a tree that I saw. That I saw means what? It is dependent, right? This is the tree that I saw. That I saw. So it is a dependent relative clause. Then next, which of this is a content clause? Means noun clause. So where he lives, although he is busy, who stole the cookie, that she is honest. So option number D, that is that she is honest. Why? Because declarative content clause. It is declarative content clause. Okay, then next. What kind of clause is he quickly ran? He quickly ran. So it is a complete statement, right? It is a complete sentence. So declarative, independent declarative clause. Okay. Then next, that is which clause shows concession? Which clause shows concession? Now, because he waited, although he tried, concession means what? Concession. Now we want the concession clause, okay? When the time comes and that you asked. So in this, although he tried is a concession, okay? The next, select the clause type, that is be quiet. Now it is a command, right? Be quiet. Someone telling you that to be quiet. So it is a type of command. So it comes under imperative independent clause. Imperative independent clause. Then whatever you decide, act as. Now whatever you decide, it acts as like a noun, right? So content, noun, clause will be your correct option. That is content, noun, clause. So this was all for the today's lecture. Thank you.